From the dawn of creation, a light was born in the heart of eternity. He was not just a messenger, he was the navigator of heaven's plan. When paradise fell silent, he stood guard between the divine and the broken. Through centuries of chaos and empire's rise, his unseen hand guided the course of human destiny. To Daniel, he came with visions of kingdoms and time itself to reveal the secrets of heaven through trembling lips. He fought unseen wars against powers that ruled the darkness of the air. Through 400 years of silence, he prepared the world for a voice that would cry in the wilderness. In the temple, he shattered doubt. In Nazareth, he awakened faith. And in Bethlehem, his mission found its perfect end. But his work did not cease. The navigator still moves among us, guiding hearts, shaping destinies, whispering through the noise of a restless world. He is the strength of God. He is the messenger eternal. What if Gabriel wasn't just a messenger, but a cosmic navigator guiding humanity through its most pivotal spiritual moments? From the dawn of creation to the birth of Christ, his presence shaped divine intervention in ways you've never imagined. This isn't the story you learned in Sunday school. It's the untold journey of heaven's strategic architect. Welcome, everyone. We often think of Gabriel as the angel who brought announcements, but his role runs far deeper. Today we explore how he operated behind the scenes, steering the course of spiritual history. His actions reveal a consistent, purposeful hand at work across the ages. Long before he delivered any message, Gabriel stood among the divine council as a foundational presence. While other angels typically executed specific commands, his position differed from the start. Ancient texts describe him present at creation itself, his very name meaning strength of God. This name suggests an operational function, not merely a communicative one. His existence before human history indicates a deeper initial purpose. Gabriel was designed as heaven's strategic operator from the beginning, preparing him for the critical interventions that would soon shape human destiny. Humanity had entered a new reality after Eden's gates closed. The direct communion between heaven and earth was severed, creating a spiritual silence that demanded more than words. The divine needed to re-establish connection, but not through proclamation, through strategic intervention. Ancient traditions suggest Gabriel became active during this period, serving as protector and guide rather than messenger. He wasn't delivering announcements but performing foundational work, guarding sacred spaces, maintaining spiritual boundaries, and ensuring humanity's survival during those fragile early centuries. His interventions occurred at critical transition points, moments when humanity's spiritual direction could have taken catastrophic turns. Why would Gabriel receive these assignments when other angels were available? His operational nature made him suited for tasks requiring discretion and strategic action. While some angels worshipped and others protected, Gabriel navigated the complex territory between heaven's purity and earth's brokenness. He worked where communication had failed, establishing patterns of divine presence through action rather than speech. This early period reveals Gabriel's evolving function. He became heaven's operative for spiritual transitions, appearing whenever humanity reached a crossroads. His presence signaled not just a message but a shift in the relationship between creator and creation. Each intervention built upon the previous, creating a pattern of guidance that would continue for millennia. Gabriel's work in the post-Eden world established his method of operation. He didn't restore the lost communication but created new pathways for divine influence. Through guarding, guiding, and strategic intervention, he maintained heaven's connection to humanity during its most vulnerable period. This established the cosmic navigator pattern, Gabriel appearing at moments when spiritual history required direction. His first major earthly assignment set the template for all that would follow, proving that heaven's response to broken communication wasn't more words but strategic action. The silence that followed would test this new approach. Centuries later, a prophet in exile faced visions that shattered normal reality. Daniel sat by the waters of a foreign land, his mind filled with beasts, horns, and cosmic battles that defied simple explanation. These were not straightforward messages of comfort or coming judgment. They were vast, terrifying revelations about the structure of his Tory itself, maps of empires and spiritual conflicts that stretched across too complex for any human mind to fully grasp unaided. This was not a delivery job. This was a navigation crisis. Gabriel arrived not as a simple courier, but as a calibrated interpreter. He recognized that Daniel's spiritual and emotional state dictated the pace and clarity of the revelation. The angel did not dump information. He managed it. He approached Daniel when the prophet was in prayer, already oriented toward heaven. He touched him, strengthening his physical form to withstand the spiritual weight of what was to come. He spoke words of reassurance first. "You are greatly loved," establishing a relational trust before unloading apocalyptic content. This was a carefully managed download of cosmic intelligence. The techniques Gabriel employed reveal a sophisticated approach to communication. When Daniel fell on his face in terror, Gabriel lifted him. When the prophet expressed confusion, the angel broke down timelines into manageable segments, 70 weeks, not an endless blur of years. He used physical touch to anchor the spiritual experience, making the unbearable somewhat bearable. He returned multiple times, revisiting and refining the prophecies, showing a patience that suggests this was less about delivery and more about ensuring true understanding. This was teaching, not telling. Why Gabriel for this particular task? The sensitivity of the information required an operative who could handle both the content and the recipient. These visions involved the rise and fall of world powers and the eventual triumph of God's kingdom. Their misinterpretation could lead to despair or dangerous speculation. Gabriel's proven track record as a strategic operator, not just a speaker, made him the only candidate. Furthermore, the text hints at spiritual resistance. Gabriel speaks of being opposed by the Prince of Persia, a powerful, spiritual entity requiring a drawn-out battle in the heavens just to reach Daniel. This mission involved warfare on multiple levels. This encounter fundamentally redefined Gabriel's known role. He was no longer just heaven's messenger. He was its interpreter and guide. He became the bridge between overwhelming divine knowledge and limited human understanding. He served as a celestial navigator, steering a human consciousness through the terrifying and magnificent geography of prophecy. This successful navigation with Daniel set a profound new pattern for divine interaction. It proved that complex spiritual truths could be communicated to humanity, but only with the right guide. This established a template for future revelations, a method that would be essential for the most important announcement yet to come. The prophetic voice fell silent for 400 years. Malachi's final words echoed into a void, unanswered. No new scriptures appeared. No prophets arose to interpret the signs of the times. To the faithful, it must have seemed like heaven had gone quiet, that the divine conversation had ended. For a being like Gabriel, whose entire purpose was communication and guidance, this period presents a puzzle. If he is the cosmic navigator, why would he vanish during some of history's most turbulent and spiritually significant centuries? Why abandon the course when the waters grew most treacherous? This apparent absence is an illusion. The silence between the testaments was not empty. It was a space filled with critical, unseen activity. Various ancient texts written during this era, while not part of the biblical canon, frequently feature Gabriel in an active role. These writings depict him not as a silent observer, but as a central figure in ongoing spiritual conflicts and preparations. They suggest his work shifted from public proclamation to behind-the-scenes orchestration. The world stage needed to be set with meticulous care for the events to come. The spiritual landscape required language and culture, creating a common tongue. The Romans built roads and enforced a peace that would allow for unprecedented travel. Philosophical ideas circulated, creating a hunger for truth that pagan religions could not satisfy. Each of these developments was a crucial piece of infrastructure for the message of the Messiah. Someone had to be navigating these currents, ensuring the conditions were ripe. The political, linguistic, and cultural groundwork did not happen by accident. This period was also one of intense, unseen spiritual warfare. The battles Gabriel fought to reach Daniel against the Prince of Persia were likely not isolated incidents. They were a preview of a conflict that raged for centuries. The forces opposed to heaven's plan would have mobilized everything to disrupt the timeline, to corrupt the chosen line, or to plunge the world into chaos before the appointed time. Gabriel's strength would have been deployed continuously on this invisible front, holding the line against spiritual opposition that sought to prevent the Messiah's arrival. His absence from the human record was not abandonment. It was a strategic withdrawal to a more critical battlefield. This silent work was the most important navigation of his career. Every political shift, every cultural development was a star he had to align. The 400 years of silence were a period of purposeful, intense preparation. Gabriel was fighting the battles and moving the pieces that would make the next announcement not just possible, but world-changing. This unseen effort set the stage perfectly. It guaranteed that when he finally stepped back into the light, his most famous appearance would land with maximum impact in a world finally ready to receive it. The silence broke in the most sacred space on earth. The temple in Jerusalem represented the final, fragile thread connecting heaven to humanity. Its rituals were a shadow of former intimacy, but they maintained the connection. Gabriel's reappearance here, after centuries of unseen activity, was a precise tactical decision. He did not appear in a king's court or a public square. He came to the one place where a priest, performing his ordained duty, might still be oriented to hear a divine voice. The setting guaranteed maximum spiritual resonance. This was not a random visit. It was a targeted intervention. Zechariah, an old man chosen by Lot for a rare honor, represented a specific spiritual problem. His lifetime had been shaped by the 400 years of silence. Hope had calcified into ritual. Expectation had faded into routine. When the angel appeared beside the incense altar, Zechariah's reaction was not joy, but terror, and then doubt. His question, "How can I be sure of this?" was not a simple request for confirmation. It was the manifestation of a deep-seated spiritual obstacle, the doubt of a generation that had stopped believing the miraculous was possible. Gabriel's message of a son, a forerunner, was crashing against the rocks of ingrained skepticism. This required a different approach. With Daniel, Gabriel calibrated a revelation. Zechariah had to overcome a barrier. The angel's response was immediate and consequential. He introduced himself with full authority, stating his name and his position standing in the presence of God. This established immediate credibility. Then he enacted a consequence for the doubt. Zechariah would be silent until the child was born. This was not a punishment in the petty sense. It was a strategic tool. The enforced silence served multiple purposes. It protected the sacred news from further doubt and gossip. It gave Zechariah 9 months of silent contemplation to process the miracle. It also created a tangible sign that would prove the message's authenticity when the child finally arrived. The stakes of this encounter was the essential prerequisite for the Messiah's arrival. He was the voice crying in the wilderness, the one who would prepare the way. If this announcement failed, if Zechariah's doubt was allowed to fester and sabotage the promise, the entire timeline of redemption could be disrupted. Gabriel's dramatic intervention was necessary to ensure the message was not only received, but also protected and fulfilled. He adapted his method to meet the specific human obstacle in his path. This successful navigation of human disbelief cleared the way. It proved that even the most hardened doubt could be overcome with the right strategic approach. Zechariah's eventual song of praise was a testament to a doubt perfectly navigated and transformed into faith. The stage was now set. The forerunner was coming. This victory against skepticism demonstrated that the world was finally ready. The next announcement would be even more audacious, and it would require Gabriel's skill to be deployed in a most unexpected place. Nazareth was not the obvious choice. A small, overlooked town in a disregarded region, it carried no prestige. Jerusalem held the temple. Bethlehem held the prophetic history. Nazareth held nothing of note, a fact later scribes would underline with skepticism. This obscurity was the entire point. Gabriel's arrival here was a masterstroke of counterintuitive strategy. The most important announcement in human history required a setting free from political expectation and religious pretension. It needed a blank slate, a place where the divine could be received without the filter of human ambition. Nazareth provided that. It was the perfect, unexpected stage. The young woman he approached lived in this quiet anonymity. Her life was defined by simple faithfulness, the kind that flourishes away from grand stages. The tension in this moment was as immense. One misstep, one poorly chosen word, and the plan spanning millennia could falter. Zechariah's doubt had been a hurdle. A rejection here would be a catastrophe. Every element required perfect calibration, the timing, the location, and most importantly, the approach to her heart and mind. Gabriel's greeting broke all his previous patterns. He did not lead with a task or a terrifying vision. He began with a blessing that acknowledged her spiritual state. "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." This was not a standard salutation. It was a recognition. It calibrated the conversation to her readiness, disarming fear and establishing a connection based on grace, not demand. He observed her reaction, saw her inner turmoil, and immediately followed with reassurance. "Do not be afraid." His words built a bridge of trust before he ever presented the incredible truth. The message itself was a careful unfolding. He announced the what, a son, then the who, the Son of the Most High, and finally, the how, the Holy Spirit will come upon you. He paced the revelation to match her capacity to absorb it, giving her a moment to process each staggering piece of information. He even provided a sign, the pregnancy of her relative Elizabeth, to anchor the promise in tangible reality. This was not a proclamation thrown at a passive recipient. It was a guided journey. Mary's question, "How will this be?" was fundamentally different from Zechariah's doubt. It was a question of mechanics, not belief. It came from a place of faith seeking understanding. Gabriel's answer provided the explanation she sought, affirming her willing heart. Her final response, "May your word to me be fulfilled," was the moment centuries of navigation had worked toward. It was the flawless acceptance of the divine plan. This encounter was the culmination of Gabriel's entire mission. He was not just an announcer here. He was the divine orchestrator, skillfully guiding the conversation navigated
to its
the most
foreordained
critical handoff in history, ensuring the divine plan found a willing human partner. This single, perfectly executed visit in a humble home changed the spiritual trajectory of the world, setting in motion events that would unfold in a stable in Bethlehem. We see only the moment of delivery, the quiet greeting, the calm announcement. But these scenes of peaceful communication were merely the visible tip of an iceberg. Underneath the surface of every encounter raged a hidden conflict. Gabriel's work always involved warfare in the spiritual realm, a struggle against opposition we never witnessed. His title, Strength of God, was not earned through polite conversation. It was a combat designation forged in conflict against forces determined to disrupt heaven's plan. Each message delivery required him to first fight his way through significant spiritual resistance. Ancient Jewish and Christian traditions outside the biblical canon consistently portray this reality. They describe Gabriel as a commander, a warrior who engages powerful spiritual entities that oppose divine will. His battle with the Prince of Persia mentioned in the book of Daniel was not an isolated incident. It was a glimpse into the constant unseen conflict that accompanied his missions. These texts suggest that territorial spirits, principalities aligned against heaven, actively worked to block his path, corrupt his messages, or intimidate his recipients. The delivery of a prophecy was the final step in a long campaign. This concept of spiritual obstacles explains the delays and intensity surrounding his appearances. The 3-week delay in reaching Daniel was not a scheduling error. It was the duration of a pitched battle. The dramatic and authoritative tone he used with Zechariah was not an overreaction. It was the necessary force required to break through, an atmosphere thick with centuries of doubt and spiritual oppression. His careful, reassuring approach to Mary was a tactical maneuver designed to shield her from any fear or confusion that opposing forces might seek to amplify. Every word, Every action was calculated to ensure the message landed with precision, untouched by interference. Gabriel's role was fundamentally dual. He was both messenger and warrior, communicator and combatant. The calm figure we see speaking is the same being who exercised the strength of God to clear a path through opposition. The message itself was the prize, the objective secured after the battle was won. His visible interactions were the peaceful occupation of territory gained through unseen conflict. This understanding transforms his story. We now see that his true function was not merely to speak, but to overcome. His successes were victories. His name, Strength of God, points directly to this operational power, this capacity to engage and defeat the obstacles that stood between heaven's intent and human reception. This combat role reveals the core of his identity. He is the applied force that ensures divine communication reaches its target. When we pull back to view all of Gabriel's appearances together, a clear and deliberate pattern emerges from what might seem like random angelic visits. This pattern reveals a purpose far more significant than simple message delivery. Each event connects to form a continuous line of divine strategy, with Gabriel as its primary operative. Look at the timing first. He appears at the precise moments when humanity's spiritual direction is about to change course dramatically. After the fall in Eden, he is present to establish a new form of guidance. Centuries later, he arrives when Daniel's visions require celestial interpretation to navigate the future. Following the long silence between on the testaments, he breaks through to Zechariah to restart the prophetic clock. Finally, he visits Mary to initiate the climax of the divine. They are strategic placements at critical junctures, each one a pivot point in the spiritual narrative. The sequence of these appearances is equally important. They build upon one another in a logical, escalating progression. The post-Eden work establishes the need for guidance. The interaction with Daniel develops the method of interpreting complex revelation. The confrontation with Zechariah proves that human doubt can be overcome. The Annunciation to Mary demonstrates the perfect execution of the method. Each mission serves as a necessary preparation for the next, forming a chain of spiritual cause and effect that culminates in the Incarnation. Geographically and chronologically, the spacing of his interventions is also telling. He works across different empires, from Babylon to Judea, showing his role is global, not local. The vast gaps of time between some appearances, centuries of silence, indicate a patient, long-term strategy rather than constant micromanagement. Heaven operates on a grand timeline, and Gabriel is the agent deployed only when the next critical adjustment to humanity's trajectory is required. This consistent pattern reveals an operational strategy of immense scope. Gabriel is not a random messenger sent on errands. He is heaven's strategic planner, the being entrusted to implement the key maneuvers in a long-term plan for human redemption. He appears when the spiritual course needs correction, guidance, or a decisive turn. He is the navigator, ensuring that despite human failings, divine opposition, and the chaos of history, the ultimate destination is still reached. Gabriel consistently operates at the moments when humanity's spiritual trajectory shifts dramatically. He is the cosmic navigator guiding our spiritual evolution, his hand visible on the tiller only at the sharpest turns. And this pattern of strategic intervention, this work of celestial navigation, did not cease when the biblical record closed. It simply moved into a new phase of history. The name Gabriel itself holds the key to his true purpose. It means strength of God, or God is my strength. This is not a passive or purely communicative title. It denotes power, force, and operational capability. The name suggests a being defined not by what he says, but by what he accomplishes. He is not merely the messenger of God. He is the embodied strength of God in action. This simple translation challenges our entire understanding of his function. When we examine his actual activities against this name, a clear alignment emerges. His strength is displayed in the garden, guarding the way and maintaining order after the cosmic breach. It is evident in the prolonged spiritual warfare required to reach Daniel, fighting through opposition to deliver critical intelligence. It is present in the temple, where his authoritative presence overcomes Zechariah's deeply ingrained doubt. His strength is the operational force that ensures divine plans are not just announced, but executed. The message is the objective. His strength is the means to secure it. This sets him apart from other angels who bring messages. Some angels appear, deliver a word, and depart. Their function is singular and temporary. Gabriel's involvement is multidimensional and strategic. He interprets, he fights, he protects, he guides, and he ensures comprehension. He stays to manage the fallout of the revelation. Ancient interpretations from Jewish mystical texts and early Christian writings consistently emphasize this aspect of his character. They depict him as a powerful commander, a celestial agent who exercises divine authority to overcome obstacles. He is the applied force of heaven's will. In a celestial context, strength, transcends physical power. It represents the capacity to effect change across spiritual and warfare against opposing principalities, the wisdom to navigate complex prophetic timelines, and the persuasive power to secure human cooperation with divine plans. His strength is the engine of implementation. This makes his role fundamentally operational. He is heaven's strategist and its executor. His true mission was to be the operational power that navigates heaven's will into reality. Message delivery was simply the most visible tool in his extensive toolkit. He was the strength that cleared the path, fought the battles, and secured the outcomes necessary for salvation history to unfold according to plan. This understanding reframes every interaction. We are not watching a delivery service at work. We are witnessing applied divine power in its most strategic form. This transforms our view of the entire narrative. Salvation history appears less like a series of pronouncements and more like a meticulously managed operation. Each event, from the fall to the incarnation, was a critical point navigated by a specific, powerful force. The story shifts from a focus on the messages themselves to the immense effort required to deliver them successfully. This operational view reveals a far more active and strategic divine engagement with the world. The strength that shaped our spiritual past continues its work in the present, guiding with the same purposeful force. The biblical record shows us specific appearances, dramatic moments when Gabriel steps into the light. But these events are only the punctuation marks in a much longer sentence. His most critical work likely occurred in the spaces between, the guidance we never saw, the disasters he prevented, the subtle course corrections that kept history moving toward its intended destination. Divine intervention operates as much through prevention as through proclamation. The real story isn't just in what was announced, but in what was quietly averted. We tend to focus on the visible miracles, an angelic visitor, a prophetic word, a miraculous birth. Yet for every one of these moments, there were countless others where divine influence worked behind the scenes to create the conditions for that miracle to even be possible. This is the realm of angelic guidance. It's the nudge away from a wrong path, the sudden idea that changes a decision, the protection from an unseen danger. It is guidance that feels like intuition, circumstance, or coincidence, yet operates with deliberate purpose. This is the ongoing work of spiritual navigation. Traditions outside the canonical scriptures frequently attribute this kind of continuous oversight to Gabriel. He is seen not as a being who occasionally visits, but as one who constantly watches. His role extends beyond crisis management to include the steady, patient guidance of human spiritual development across generations. He is depicted as influencing thinkers, protecting key bloodlines, and inspiring movements that would prepare the world for greater revelations. His work during the 400 years of silence is the ultimate example, a long, unseen campaign of spiritual preparation. This concept of unseen guidance fundamentally alters our view of salvation history. It suggests a continuous divine engagement with humanity, not a series of disconnected interventions. The timeline of faith was not left to chance between prophetic visits. It was actively shepherded. Gabriel's visible appearances were not the sum of his work. They were the climactic moments, the peaks of a mountain range whose bulk remains hidden beneath the surface. They were the points where the ongoing guidance broke through into undeniable revelation. Gabriel served as humanity's unseen spiritual director. His guidance was a constant, a low-frequency signal beneath the noise of history, carefully steering the visit to Daniel, the confrontation with Zechariah. These were simply the moments when the volume was turned up, when the guidance became unmistakably clear. This pattern of a continuous presence, rather than an intermittent one, suggests his involvement did not cease. The navigation that guided humanity through its most pivotal ancient turns is the same force that continues its work in the complexity of the modern world, adapting its methods but never its purpose. We typically frame biblical stories with humanity as the hero, the flawed but chosen protagonist on a journey toward redemption. But shift the focus to Gabriel, and an entirely different hero's journey comes into view, one that spans millennia and operates on a celestial scale. His story contains all the classic elements: a calling, a series of trials, formidable obstacles, and a hard-won resolution. The difference is that his journey is not about his own personal salvation, but about guiding the salvation of an entire species. He is the steady hand that navigates the hero, humanity, through its own turbulent story. Tracing his biblical appearances reveals a clear character arc. He begins as a silent operator in the garden's aftermath, a guardian enforcing a new divine order. His mission is straightforward: protect and contain. Centuries later with Daniel, his role deepens. He is no longer just a warden. He becomes an interpreter, a guide through terrifying spiritual landscapes. This requires new skills, patience, empathy, and the ability to translate the infinite into the understandable. He evolves from a force of order into a teacher. The challenges he faces are immense and varied. Each obstacle requires a different aspect of his strength. He battles territorial spirits to deliver a message. He confronts the hardened doubt of a priest who represents generations of silence. He carefully navigates the fate of a young girl, ensuring her free cooperation with an incomprehensible plan. His greatest adversary is not a single entity, but the cumulative weight of human fallibility and spiritual opposition. Every successful delivery is a victory against these forces. This suggests a being whose understanding of his mission evolves with experience. The angel who stood guard at Eden might not have fully grasped the long, complex strategy unfolding across centuries. Through his interactions, he witnesses the resilience and fragility of the human spirit firsthand. He learns how to communicate with us, adapting his approach from the terrifying glory that overwhelmed Daniel to the gentle reassurance offered to Mary. He grows into his role as heaven's chief strategist for human engagement. The concept of spiritual growth in an angelic being is a profound one. It implies that even a celestial being tasked with an eternal purpose can develop, learn, and deepen in his understanding through the execution of his duties. Gabriel's journey is one of increasing responsibility and refining skill. He becomes more adept at navigating the complexities of the human heart and the machinations of the spiritual realm. A journey of perfecting his craft. Seeing Gabriel as the hero transforms familiar stories. We are no longer just passive observers of divine messages. We are watching a master strategist at work, employing millennia of accumulated wisdom to steer history toward its intended climax. His personal journey, marked by struggle and adaptation, reveals the incredible depth and patience of the divine strategy itself. This perspective makes the story not just about what was saved, but about the intricate, costly, and brilliant navigation required to save it. Centuries of navigation reached their final destination not in a palace or temple, but in the humble space of a stable in Bethlehem. This moment represented the ultimate convergence of the divine and human, the point where celestial strategy met history, every prophecy and every intervention balanced on the successful arrival of this single child. The stakes were absolute. Had Gabriel's previous work failed? Had Daniel misunderstood? Had Zechariah's doubt prevailed? Had Mary refused? This moment would not have happened. The culmination of his mission hinged on a birth in a manger. Every one of Gabriel's previous actions served as a stepping stone leading directly to Bethlehem. His guidance after Eden preserved the line of promise. His interpretation of Daniel mapped the timeline. His confrontation with Zechariah secured the forerunner. His annunciation to Mary initiated the incarnation itself. Each event was a calculated move in a long-term strategy, a necessary alignment that made the nativity possible. The stable was not a plan B. It was the intended strategic endpoint of a journey that began with humanity's exile. The spiritual convergence at the Nativity was immense. It was the moment where countless prophetic threads, guarded and interpreted by Gabriel, wove together into a single, tangible reality. The political peace of Rome, the Greek language, the spiritual hunger of the age, all the pieces of preparation from the silent centuries clicked into place. The heavenly host appeared to the shepherds, marking the event with a celestial celebration. But the primary spiritual work, the navigation that secured this outcome, had already been completed months earlier in Nazareth. The birth was the successful delivery of the plan. Gabriel's direct biblical role in the events of that night is not recorded. Yet, considering his function as heaven's strategic operator, his unseen involvement is a certainty. He would have been actively engaged in the spiritual warfare surrounding the birth, protecting the mother and child from the hostile forces that would seek to destroy the Messiah, from his first breath. His work was now defensive, ensuring the safe arrival of the prize he had worked so long to secure. This moment was the fulfillment of his core mission. The Annunciation was his masterstroke, the perfect navigational act that set the final events in motion. His successful guidance of Mary's response ensured that the divine plan found its flawless human vessel. The birth in Bethlehem was the direct result of that successful negotiation. It was the physical manifestation of a celestial strategy executed perfectly across millennia. He had navigated the turbulent waters of human history and spiritual opposition to reach this single, quiet, world-altering moment. This profound success, however, did not signal the end of his duties. The navigation of salvation was complete, but the guidance and protection of its message had only just begun. The biblical narrative closes its pages, but the story does not end. If Gabriel is heaven's cosmic navigator, the one who guides humanity's spiritual trajectory, his mission would not simply conclude with the final book. His work would continue, adapting to new eras and new challenges. The assumption that angelic activity ceased after the apostolic age ignores the very nature of his role. A navigator does not abandon the ship once it leaves its home port. He guides it through every leg of its long journey. Throughout church history, consistent traditions and accounts from various Christian communities suggest Gabriel's ongoing presence. These stories, while not part of sacred scripture, form a compelling pattern. They describe his involvement at pivotal moments, inspiring influential theologians during periods of doctrinal confusion, strengthening the resolve of persecuted believers, and appearing to key figures at crossroads of faith. His method remains consistent. Strategic intervention at point S of spiritual transition or crisis. His role in the post-apostolic era left salvation history complete. His focus shifted from initiating the plan to protecting and clarifying it. This involved guiding the church through theological controversies, inspiring the preservation of scripture, and bolstering the faith of communities under threat. His strength was deployed not to announce new revelations, but to ensure the original message was correctly understood, preserved, and propagated across cultures and centuries. The consistency of his mission across time is striking. Whether appearing in a dusty Judean town or influencing a medieval monastery, his objective remains the same: to guide humanity toward divine purposes. The spiritual battles he fought in Daniel's time are the same ones he would engage in throughout history, combating error, defending truth, and strengthening the faithful. His tools adapted to the context, but his purpose as heaven's operational strategist never changed. For believers today, this continuity is profoundly significant. It suggests that the same celestial guidance that shaped biblical history is still actively involved in the world. Gabriel's continuing activity means the divine narrative is not a closed book of past events, but an ongoing story in which we all participate. His unseen navigation offers a framework for understanding how divine providence might operate behind the scenes of our own complex modern world, steering the collective human spirit through its current challenges and turning points. This understanding of his unbroken service brings his entire story into sharp, present focus. We are not studying a historical figure who completed his work long ago. We are recognizing an active, ongoing force in the spiritual landscape. The navigation that guided the early church through persecution and the medieval church through Reformation is the same guidance navigating a global church today. This perspective forces us to look at our current spiritual climate not as a period of silence, but as another chapter in a long, guided journey. The work of heaven's cosmic navigator does not cease. In our modern age of data and skepticism, the methods of divine guidance have adapted, not ended. We no longer expect an angelic figure to appear in a burst of light. We assume such things belong to a more mystical past. Yet if Gabriel's core mission is to guide humanity through spiritual shifts, his work must continue, tailored to the language and struggles of our time. The real question is not if he is active, but how we might recognize his navigation now. His methods today are likely more subtle, woven into the fabric of ordinary life rather than breaking through in dramatic theophanies. Guidance now might feel like a sudden conviction, an unexpected sense of peace in a moment of decision, or a series of circumstances that align with uncanny precision. It could be the compelling thought to reach out to someone at just the right time, or the unexplained strength to endure a crisis. These are the modern equivalents of ancient guidance, less about visible angels and more about invisible influence on the human heart and mind. This unseen guidance operates within the new spiritual landscape. In an era shaped by digital noise, mental overwhelm, and philosophical materialism, divine navigation works to create moments of clarity and quiet conviction. It cuts through the static, not with a shout, but with a whisper that resonates in the conscience. It works through providence, the chance meeting, the timely book, the word of advice that shifts a perspective. Gabriel's strength is now channeled into influencing these seemingly random events, arranging them into a coherent guidance for those who are attuned to it. For personal faith, this is transformative. It means the celestial guidance that shaped saints and prophets is equally available today. It is not a relic but a living reality, viewing our lives not as a series of random events, but as a journey being navigated. It invites us to look for the subtle steering in our own stories, the quiet hand that has perhaps prevented disasters, opened unexpected doors, or planted persistent questions that led us toward truth. Gabriel serves as humanity's unseen guide through contemporary spiritual shifts. His navigation adapts to each generation's unique challenges, using the tools of the age to accomplish the eternal purpose. He remains the strength of God, operating behind the scenes to ensure that, despite the chaos of modern life, the individual and collective human spirit continues to be guided toward its ultimate purpose. This understanding does not diminish his biblical role, it completes it, showing a being whose work is as relevant now as it was in the streets of Nazareth. So the story of Gabriel reveals not just a messenger, but a celestial navigator. He has guided humanity through every spiritual shift from the garden to this present moment. The next time you read about his appearances, remember you are seeing only the surface of a much deeper operation. Behind every message was a strategy, behind every visit, a battle. That same cosmic navigation continues its work today, guiding, protecting, and steering the course of human destiny. Consider how this perspective might transform your understanding of guidance in your own life. The unseen hand remains at work,